Where do you think humans can't live? A city where the cold can freeze everything in minutes. Or a land so hot it burns human skin. Or even places so isolated that the world barely knows you exist. They sound like places where life has no chance, but the most terrifying thing is people still live there. They don't just exist, they call it home. So what makes people cling to lands where Earth itself seems to be trying to eliminate them? In this video, we'll help you answer that question. And don't leave too soon, because the 10th location might be a place you won't believe people still survive in. Nestled deep in northeastern Siberia, alongside the Lena River, which is almost frozen year-round, Yakutsk, the capital of the Sakha Republic, is a place where the cold doesn't just exist. It almost has a consciousness of its own. People often jokingly say that it's cold enough to make your fingers fall off, but the truth is, when temperatures drop below minus 50 degrees Celsius, just a few minutes, outdoors will make you understand that saying is no joke. Life in Yakutsk is like a slow-motion survival movie. Your breath freezes right in front of you, and your eyelashes stick together in thin layers of ice. Cars are never turned off, because once they are, chances are you'll have to wait until spring to restart them. Houses aren't built on the ground, but stand on stilts as if the entire city is avoiding the permafrost below. And every time you step outside, you don't just put on clothes, you put on an entire survival system. Yet what makes Yakuza incredible isn't the cold. It's the people. They still live, go to school, trade, laugh, and talk in a place where nature seems to be trying to erase life. And perhaps that's the biggest question. What keeps them there? Is it the diamond mines hidden deep beneath the ice? Or something more intangible? A sense of belonging to this place, no matter how unimaginably harsh it is. Death Valley, USA doesn't look like a valley. It looks like a gigantic crack where the sun unleashes its full fury on the ground. Located in eastern California, in a barren basin below sea level, this place once recorded a temperature of 56.7 degrees Celsius. So hot that the air shimmers like invisible flames and the horizon distorts as if the whole world is melting. At Badwater Basin, vast white salt flats stretched like the skeleton of a dead ocean, reflecting the glaring sunlight so intensely that the landscape resembles a forgotten planet. Here the heat doesn't just touch your skin. Here the heat doesn't just touch your skin. It clings to you like a cloak of fire. Every step through the desert is like treading across the floor of a giant furnace, where nature seems to be testing the limits of human will. Summer in Death Valley is no longer summer. It's a survival test. Joking aside, just standing outdoors for a few minutes will make you realize air conditioning deserves a Medal of Honor. Yet the strangest thing is that in a land named Death Valley, life still refuses to surrender. After rare rains, wildflowers can suddenly burst into bloom like magic. Amidst the ashes, tiny creatures quietly adapt to the salty soil, scorching sun, and almost absurd harshness. And perhaps it's this wild, surreal beauty, both frightening and captivating, that keeps people here to witness that even in a place seemingly meant only for death, life still finds a way to express itself. Oymyakon, Russia. If you thought Yakutsk was the ultimate limit of cold, Oymyakon will shatter that notion immediately. This village in northeastern Siberia is often referred to as a place that can kill a person in just 1 minute if they venture outside unprotected. The record temperature recorded here dropped to minus 71.2 degrees Celsius, and in winter the average temperature typically ranges from minus 40 to minus 50 degrees Celsius. Summers warm up significantly, but that period is so fleeting that it's as if winter just lets go for a few weeks before tightening its grip again. It sounds like a land where life should have given up long ago, yet it remains home to nearly 800 people, including not only Russians but also many other ethnic minority communities who have lived there for generations. In Oymyakon, the cold is no longer just weather. It's like an invisible predator circling the village, waiting for an opportunity to attack anyone who is careless. Just going outside without enough clothing and protective gear can be instantly fatal. The strange thing is that the locals still maintain habits that outsiders find hard to believe. They bathe in cold water and consider it quite normal, while stepping from indoors to outdoors can cause extremely dangerous thermal shock. Amidst a landscape as white as an ice planet, Oymyakon still holds its own charm, with reindeer hunting trips, fishing and stream bathing. Perhaps it's the attachment to their homeland, community, and the wild beauty that is both cruel and enchanting that keeps people here. In a place where winter doesn't just settle on the land, but also on the rhythm of human life. If you ask where the loneliest place in the world is, McMurdo Station, Antarctica, will certainly be one of the first answers. Amidst this kingdom of ice, wind, and almost absolute isolation, humankind has erected a small fortress, like a stubborn spark burning in an endless white. Located on Ross Island, on the shore of McMurdo Sound, McMurdo is Antarctica's largest research and logistics station, a town cast to the very edge of the world. In summer, about 1,000 people, from scientists, engineers, pilots, to chefs and logistics teams, flock here, making the ends of the earth light up and pulse with a heartbeat. But when winter closes in, the outside world almost disappears, leaving McMurdo to huddle amidst blizzards, razor-sharp winds, and darkness that seems to stretch endlessly. From afar, McMurdo looks like a cluster of metal boxes stuck in an ice sea, with a backdrop of dark volcanic rock and Mount Erebus standing silently like an ancient giant guarding the white continent. Here, everything must operate like a giant survival machine. Electricity, water, heating, food, fuel, every ship, every flight. Even a small oversight can become a huge problem in a place where nature is so unforgiving that it offers no chance for humans to correct mistakes. Joking aside, working here is no longer going on a business trip. It's more like moving your office to another planet entirely, where the dress code is a parka, snow goggles, and a very serious expression. Yet, what makes McMurdo incredible isn't just the harshness, but the fact that humans still survive here. They come to study climate, glaciers, geology, biology, and the secrets Antarctica has kept locked away for millions of years. But it's not just science that keeps them here. It's also the auroras sweeping across the sky like the light curtain of an alien theater. The frozen sea reflecting a cold blue light like glass, and the feeling of standing at the end of the world yet still hearing the hum of machinery, footsteps, and the sound of humans continuing to exist. McMurdo Station isn't just a research station. It's proof that even in a place seemingly made only of ice and silence, humankind can still light a small flame and call it life. Have you ever imagined a place where just breathing feels like constantly climbing a mountain? Do you believe that tens of thousands of people accept living in such a place just to pursue a dream? La Rinconada, Peru, is one such place. Perched precariously at an altitude of approximately 5,100 meters in the Andes, it is often considered the highest permanent human settlement in the world. At that altitude, the air is so thin that every step makes your chest labor, as if the sky is pressing down on every breath. From afar, La Rinconada resembles a town suspended in the clouds, with houses clinging to the cold mountainside under the shadow of a snow-capped peak. But what makes this place terrifying isn't just the altitude. La Rinconada is like a giant scar of a gold rush, where mud, ice, waste, and dust intertwine into a picture that is both real and unbelievable. Here, clean water is scarce. Infrastructure is lacking, the environment is heavily polluted, and life revolves around gold mines as if the entire town is digging hope from the earth. Hearing this, do you still think gold always glitters? Joking aside, this isn't a place to go to the mountains to heal, but rather to get close to the sky to grapple with reality. Yet why do people still flock here? The answer lies in gold. It is the dream of changing their lives that keeps them in a cold, chaotic, and deprived world. Where life is not gentle, but hope still glimmers beneath the deep rock. And if it were you, would you dare to trade your health, safety, and even your life just to touch that opportunity? In the Indian Ocean, there still exists an island that the modern world can barely reach. North Sentinel Island, part of India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands, is home to the Sentinelese people, one of the most isolated communities on the planet. From a distance, it looks like a deep green patch of forest lying still in the sea, beautiful and serene, like a perfect tropical picture. But behind that peaceful facade is an invisible boundary stronger than any wall. The Sentinelers almost completely refuse contact with the outside world and have repeatedly reacted violently to those who attempt. The Indian government also prohibits access to the island to protect them from disease, conflict, and the consequences that modern humans might bring. Because with isolated communities like this, even a single uncontrolled contact can become a disaster. It sounds a bit paradoxical, but here, the best way to show respect is sometimes simply not to go near. And that's what makes North Sentinel Island dangerous in a very different way. It's not terrifying because of scorching heat or deadly cold, but because here, the mere presence of outsiders is a threat. The island's lush, quiet appearance is like a calm sea, hiding an absolute forbidden zone. Information about the Sentinelese way of life remains so scarce that it's almost swallowed by a veil of mystery. People only know they rely on the forest, the sea, and what the island provides, as if time forgot this place thousands of years ago. And perhaps that's what makes North Sentinel Island both frightening and captivating. It's one of the very few places on Earth that still belongs to itself, not to us. Our next journey will probably startle you because this time we're not stepping into a place that's too hot or too high, but to a city where the sun simply disappears for weeks on end. That's Barrow, or Utqiaġvik, Alaska, the northernmost city in the United States, located right on the edge of the Arctic Ocean. Where winter has about 65 days without seeing the sun. Here, darkness doesn't just fall and then leave the next morning. It blankets the entire city like a giant black curtain, swallowing rooftops, horizons, and even the familiar sense of time. Utqiaġvik appears amidst the cold white tundra as a small cluster of lights trying to keep itself from being swallowed by the Arctic night. Wind sweeps through the ice and snow like thin blades. The sea in the distance hardens under a silvery grey ice sheet. And the sky is often so dark that you feel like someone just turned down the light on the entire world. Joking aside, living here means you probably become best friends with electric lights, because the sun seems to take a rather long vacation. Yet Utqiaġvik is not an abandoned outpost. It is still home to the Inupiaq community. Still has houses, schools, daily life, and a resilient rhythm amidst the long winter. The city was once known as Barrow, but since 2016, it has officially reverted to its indigenous name, Utqiaġvik, as an affirmation that this place at the edge of light is not just a polar point on the map, but also home, memory, and identity. Continuing our journey, we will arrive at a place once called the Gates of Hell. But before bearing that chilling name, Skeleton Coast, Namibia, was considered one of Africa's lesser-known gems. And perhaps it is this very contrast that makes this place so haunting. Both beautiful like a forgotten secret and terrifying, as if nature deliberately hid a giant trap behind a thick, white fog. Along the desolate coast where the Namib Desert plunges directly into the Atlantic Ocean, the skeleton coast appears as a boundary between two worlds. One side a cold grey sea, the other silent yellow sand. Thick layers of fog creep close to the water like nameless ghosts, while strong waves and fierce currents silently transform this place into a graveyard for ships throughout centuries. Rusty shipwrecks lean on the sand like the skeletons of long-dead maritime dreams, making the entire coastline resemble a post-apocalyptic film where the wind has not stopped telling its story. But the terror of the skeleton coast doesn't just lie in the sea. Once surviving to set foot on shore, humans face the cruel aridity of the desert, where fresh water is as rare as a miracle. Sandstorms whip the face, and isolation stretches so far that even silence seems to echo. Joking aside, this is the kind of place where you don't need a danger warning sign because the landscape itself is warning enough. Yet even amidst this desolation, the skeleton coast retains its unique allure. It is beautiful in a wild, cold, and untamed way, like a gem dusted by wind and sea salt. And perhaps that is why this place is both feared and fascinated, because sometimes the most beautiful places on Earth are also the places that make humans understand most clearly how small they are. Hormuz Island, Iran is vast and full of fascinating things, from architecture and history to cuisine. But if you love unique places, then Hormuz Island is the most peculiar gem. When people mention Iran, they often think of magnificent mosques or ancient wonders. So this small island is often overlooked, like a hidden secret in the Gulf region. But just stepping foot here, you'll feel like you've entered another world. Hormuz appears with mountains of shimmering red, pink, and gold, pristine beaches, and untouched valleys, as if someone spilled an entire palette of colours on the ground and forgot to wipe it away. The rocks here glow under the sun, as if smouldering, so beautiful that it sometimes looks like a science fiction movie scene. Joking aside, in Hormuz, even the ground knows how to stand out more than people. But behind that beauty is a life that is not easy. The island is hot and dry, lacking greenery and fresh water, and quite isolated, making living there always accompanied by scarcity and adaptation. People here not only live with scorching sun and barren land, but also have to accept the limitations that nature imposes every day. And perhaps this contrast makes Hormuz unforgettable. A place as beautiful as an illusion, but harsh enough to remind us that not every gem is easy to reach. Cape Verde is a volcanic archipelago in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, about 570 kilometers west of the coast of Senegal. Across this vast stretch of sea, 10 main islands form a horseshoe-shaped arc, separated from every continent by hundreds of kilometers of deep ocean. From above, they look like the remaining peaks of an ancient world that sank beneath the sea long ago. This place lies along one of the most notable weather corridors on the planet, where many tropical storms begin to form before crossing the Atlantic. However, the strangest thing about this land is found in its very name. Cape Verde, or Cabo Verde in Portuguese, means green cape. The name brings to mind lush forests, wide grasslands, and abundant water, but the reality is completely different. Many of the islands look dry, rocky, filled with dusty valleys and hillsides where large trees can barely take root. For most of the year, the dominant colors of the landscape are not green, but earthy brown, stone gray, and the pale yellow of drought-resistant vegetation. Only about 1/10 of the land can be used for long-term farming. For centuries, drought and climate change have always been tied to life on these islands. Before the 15th century, there was no evidence that humans had ever lived permanently on the archipelago. For centuries, the people here could not control the weather or the distance from the rest of the world. The only thing they could control was how they responded to those challenges. From that, a calm and practical philosophy of life do not rush, do not complain too much, and do not let things beyond your control take away the joy of living. This spirit is also clear in sports, as Cape Verde's national football team qualified for the 2026 World Cup for the first time. Their opening match of the tournament left a powerful impression on football fans, not because of the score, but because it showed a small nation standing shoulder to shoulder with the biggest names in world football. Our journey continues into a place where simply standing still is a challenge. The Changtang Plateau is a vast arid grassland located at an altitude of over 4,500 meters in northwestern Tibet and extending to Ladakh, India. It is home to the nomadic Changpi people, who have chosen to cling to a land where nature seems to have left only wind, rock, and sky. With an almost Arctic climate, Changtang is often considered part of the roof of the world, where every breath thins due to altitude, and every step feels like walking on the edge of the sky. Summers here are dry, but by no means gentle. Thunderstorms and hail can unexpectedly whip across the open grasslands like nature's whips. In winter, the entire plateau is plunged into prolonged, harsh cold, so much so that this region resembles an Arctic lifted and placed in Asia. Yet, amidst this harshness, life refuses to retreat. Herds of yaks still move silently like dark shadows in the cold wind, while the Changpa people continue to roam with their tents and livestock, as resilient as if they have learned to live with the harshness instead of fighting against it. Changtang is also home to many rare animal species, especially the Tibetan antelope, or chiru, a slender but resilient species with fewer than 75,000 individuals remaining in the wild. And perhaps that is what makes Changtang special, a land that appears almost empty, but quietly holds an entire wild world, fragile and astonishing. If there is any place in the world that looks absurdly beautiful yet also so lonely it's almost a desert, it is Socotra Island, Yemen, with its hot, dry climate and harsh landscape. This island is like a piece of land forgotten by time in the Indian Ocean, where nature has created a strange world so unique that just looking at it feels like being lost on another planet. Located off the coast of Somalia but belonging to Yemen, Socotra has been geographically isolated for about 18 million years. This isolation has transformed it into a rare biological treasure with over 800 unique species of flora and fauna, including more than 300 endemic plant species that exist nowhere else on Earth. The island's terrain ranges from arid deserts and white coastal sand dunes to majestic mountain ranges, creating a landscape that is both wild and surreal. Like a painting rendered in dust, rock, and sunlight. Most prominent on the island is the dragon's blood tree, the symbol of Socotra, with its broad canopy spreading like a giant mushroom amidst the parched land. Its red sap, appearing like blood flowing from the trunk, has long been used in medicine and cosmetics, giving this tree an even more mysterious, legendary appearance. Additionally, the intensely hot, dry climate and many almost desert-like areas also provide conditions for other strange plants to thrive. such as the desert rose, a succulent that blooms in barren soil like an artistic joke of nature. Joking aside, in Socotra, even the plants have such unique forms that looking at them makes you feel a bit ordinary. The 11th location on this journey will take us to a land right on the edge of the world, where ice, glaciers, and polar bears are not exceptions, but a very normal part of life. Svalbard, Norway, appears as a rough sketch of Earth, where nature seems to have stripped away almost all colours, retaining only ice, rock, wind, and a cold, metallic light. At first glance, this place seems desolate to the point of being almost emotionless. Vast open spaces, sparse vegetation, and glaciers stretching to the horizon make Svalbard look like an unfinished world. But if you look a little longer, that cold shell begins to crack. In Longyearbyen, the archipelago's small administrative centre, people live between two strange Arctic extremes. Summer with the midnight sun, when light hangs overhead, as if it forgot its way down, and winter with auroras weaving across the sky like ghostly silk ribbons glowing in the dark. The most magical thing about Svalbard lies in the change of seasons. After a long and dark winter, like a locked room, the ground begins to stir. On the tundra, which seems to have only rock and wind, vegetation sprouts in the most unlikely places, as if life is secretly signing its name on the Arctic. When the snow melts, hiking trails open up around Longyearbyen, drawing people outdoors into the cold to touch the mountain peaks and then onto boats or kayaks for further journeys. Joking aside, in Svalbard, going for a relaxing walk sometimes sounds more like an explorer's plan than an ordinary person's. But that beauty always comes with a very real warning. Outside the settlements, people face not only cold winds and ice, but also polar bears. And that's what makes Svalbard so memorable. A place that seems barren and silent. But the longer you stay, the more you realize it's as vibrant, fierce, and captivating as a movie directed by nature itself. But hardship doesn't just come from extreme weather. Sometimes it takes the form of absolute isolation. Welcome to Pitcairn, a tiny green speck cast into the vast Pacific Ocean, home to the planet's smallest community. With fewer than 50 people. From above, the island resembles a rugged emerald fortress besieged by sheer cliffs that defy any anchor. With no airstrip or harbour, Pitcairn's heartbeat barely flickers, regulated by supply ships that arrive only once every few months. Its history is as thrilling as a movie script. In the late 18th century, a group of mutinous sailors from HMS Bounty fled to these misty cliffs to permanently sever their ties. They deliberately burned their ship, turning the blazing fire in the night sea into a sworn oath to stay. Today, their descendants maintain a primitive way of life in Adamstown. Joking aside, in a place with a population smaller than a single classroom, despite thousands of miles of dark ocean silently isolating everything, the island stubbornly persists. Pitcairn is a powerful testament that even when forgotten by the entire world, life always finds a way to drop anchor. But isolation isn't always adrift on the water. Sometimes it's locked deep within the colossal cracks carved directly into the continent. Hidden deep within the majestic Grand Canyon, the village of Supai in Arizona proudly defies the rotation of car wheels. It emerges as a secret kingdom guarded by towering red sandstone cliffs, rising like a fiery fortress of creation. To reach this oasis, you must wear down your feet along a steep 13-kilometre trail, sway arduously on the backs of pack mules, or tear through the sky in a helicopter skimming the edge of the abyss. Joking aside, for here, you can forget about express delivery. Even the postman has to transform into a cowboy, riding mules to deliver letters and packages daily into the rugged valley. However, the reward for the red dust clinging to your shoulders is a surreal cinematic experience. Waterfalls gush in impossibly vibrant emerald green, carving through the dry earth like the lifeblood of a mythical world. In this remote, forgotten corner, the Havasupai tribe maintains a resilient rhythm of life with a school, a post office, and even a small, quiet coffee shop. Supai is more than just a settlement. It's a roaring rock and water crescendo, proving that humans can sow the seeds of vibrant life even when imprisoned at the bottom of a deep chasm. Human ambition sometimes extends beyond Earth's boundaries, plunging us into a frozen dimension at the very edge of the North. Lying silently in the Canadian Arctic, Devon Island appears as a barren fragment of the universe, accidentally dropped onto Earth. It is the world's largest uninhabited island, a desert of sharp rocks lashed by biting winds and brutal cold. Its most eerie feature is Horton, a 23-million-year-old meteor crater, transforming the entire landscape into a perfect replica of the Red Planet. Amidst this awe-inspiring silence, the Horton Mars Project Research Station, HMPRS, rises like an outpost of the future. Here, NASA has turned the island into a real-life science fiction film set. They test rovers, don bulky spacesuits, and quietly rehearse for the day humanity tears through the atmosphere. Joking aside, if you want a Mars tour but find spaceship tickets too pricey, just knock on Devon's door, only instead of worrying about encountering aliens, you'll have to watch out for polar bears leisurely strolling around. Though not tasked with sheltering cozy homes, Devon proudly exists as a magnificent laboratory, where humans borrow Earth's ultimate harshness to sow the seeds for conquering the vast universe. Sometimes harshness doesn't just erode the body, but cruelly seeks to swallow an entire golden age of humanity. Perched precariously at the gateway to the unforgiving Sahara, Timbuktu was once a proud jewel reigning on the banks of the Niger River. Back in the 15th century, it was Africa's busiest thoroughfare, brilliantly showcasing a unique trade, exchanging pure gold for white salt. Joking aside, back then, if you carried a sweaty bag of salt around, you were definitely a clandestine billionaire with market-manipulating power. This place was once a holy land of Islamic knowledge, embracing invaluable manuscript libraries and ancient mud-walled mosques. However, the glory of old is now struggling against the cruel wrath of nature. Temperatures in Timbuktu are like a giant furnace, suffocating the air at nearly 50 degrees Celsius. Even more haunting are the Harmattan sandstorms, swirling like hungry monsters, cruelly tearing at cracked mud walls and blanketing everything in a suffocating haze of dust. Desertification relentlessly devours, silently pushing creeping sand dunes to the very doorstep, poised to bury the entire city in a sandy grave. Despite the scorching heat and blinding gales, the people here stubbornly cling on, carefully preserving each yellowed page of ancient books with their bare hands, determined to keep the heartbeat of a great legend from ever being erased by the sandstorms. Nature's cruel heat has never known mercy, possessing the power to bury even the greatest legends. Tucked away in the vast inferno of the Sahara, Araouane, Mali, appears like a dying mirage under the scorching sun. 170 miles north of Timbuktu, this extremely arid town was once a vital lifeline, an oasis offering salvation thanks to rare freshwater wells squeezed from the sand. Tracing back through history, this place is even older than Timbuktu, once a bustling transit point leading to the Taoudeni salt mines and the proud Moroccan kingdoms. Imagine a Golden Age film where ivory and precious stones met dazzling Venetian crystal or Parisian pearls. Joking aside, if you time travelled back to 19th century Araouane and naively tried to close a deal with paper money, you'd surely be laughed out of town because savvy merchants here only nodded at pure gold and silver. Not only did it reek of money, this barren land was also once a brilliant cradle of knowledge, preserving countless invaluable Islamic manuscripts. But the cruel gears of nature are silently writing Araouane's final obituary. Water and food sources are dwindling, turning life into a desperate struggle. Towering sand dunes are surging like 1,000 monstrous tsunamis, poised to swallow the remnants of a glorious era. As the silhouettes of camel caravans fade into oblivion, Araouane is like a tragic masterpiece about to forever sink to the bottom of a sandy ocean, leaving behind a haunting sigh about the fragility of glory before silent wrath. Arid infernos always signify desolation and a deadly silence. However, along the border stretching across India and Pakistan, the Thar Desert pulses with an absurdly vibrant rhythm. Spanning over 200,000 square kilometres, the Great Indian Desert appears like a giant furnace, blazing above 50 degrees Celsius in summer, then instantly flipping to become bone-chillingly cold in winter. Rainfall here drips like a grudging blessing from the sky. Despite nature's unkindness, the Thar people, the children of the desert, stubbornly cling on, meticulously collecting every rare drop of water from saline gravel lakes to herd goats and sheep, making this the most densely populated desert in the world. Not only do they survive, but humans also transform this harshness into a romantic masterpiece. The experience of swaying atop a 2-meter tall camel, clattering through endless dunes, easily makes you imagine yourself as a traveller in The Alchemist. Though in reality you're struggling to hold your breath and balance to avoid toppling onto the hot sand. When the tyrannical sun sets, Thar transforms into a spectacular 1,000-star theatre. Lying back on the cool, soft dunes, sipping beer and carelessly drifting off to sleep in the middle of nowhere, the brutal nature of the day suddenly becomes as gentle as a lullaby. Joking aside, instead of fleeing the scorching heat, people here gather to camp and drink beer, turning a harsh land into a crowded home that other deserts must surely envy. From extreme cold to scorching infernos, these 20 places are the most brilliant testament to the resilient spirit of humanity. No matter how brutal nature may be, as long as there is hope, humans proudly cling on and call it home. Which location haunts you the most? Would you dare to set foot there even once? Leave a comment and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more spectacular journeys to come.